They called me outdated. I smiled and nodded. I had learned to wear silence like armor. My own son, my little boy who once held my hand to cross the street. He looked at me with pity in his eyes and told me I was not relevant anymore. What he did not know was that the company he poured his soul into, the very startup he thought he built alone, it stood because of me, because of my quiet belief, my hidden investment. But I said nothing. Not yet. This is not a story about revenge. This is a story about being seen again, about reclaiming your voice, even if you whispered it through years of being ignored. So if you have ever felt invisible, if you have ever swallowed your pain just to keep peace, then this story, it is for you. Before we jump back in, tell us where you are tuning in from. And if this story touches your heart, please subscribe, because tomorrow I have saved something truly special just for you. My name is Ellen Brooks. I am 63 years old. Most days, I wake up before the sun rises. I sit by the kitchen window with a cup of tea and listen to the birds sing. That quiet hour is mine. It is the time when the world feels calm, and I feel like I belong somewhere, even if only in my own home. I live in a modest house on the edge of town. The walls are filled with framed memories, photographs of birthdays, weddings, family holidays. Some of the pictures are faded, but the emotions behind them are still strong. My favorite one is from my son Aaron's graduation. He is smiling, holding his diploma, and I am beside him, proud and teary-eyed. I still remember how tightly he hugged me that day. Aaron is 35 now. He lives in the city with his wife Julia and their little boy Max. They are busy people, always working, always moving. I do not see them as often as I would like, but I tell myself that this is normal. Grown children have their own lives. I do not want to be a burden. My days follow a gentle rhythm. I tend my garden, read books from the local library, and volunteer twice a week at the community center. I help serve lunches to seniors, many of whom feel forgotten by their families. Sometimes I wonder if I will become like them, waiting by the door, hoping someone will remember me. I speak to Aaron on the phone every Sunday. The conversations are short. He asks how I am, and I say I am fine. I ask how he is, and he says, he is busy, but good. We do not talk deeply anymore. I used to think it was just a phase. Now I am not so sure. When Aaron was younger, we were close. He used to tell me everything. His dreams, his worries, his plans. I would listen for hours, offering advice when he asked and comfort when he needed it. But over the years, something shifted. He became distant. He stopped asking for my opinion. He started talking to me as if I were someone from a different world. I remember one moment clearly. It was about a year ago. I had baked one of his favorite pies, blueberry, just like he used to love. I brought it over to his place. Julia answered the door. She smiled politely but looked surprised to see me. When Aaron came in, he said, "You really did not have to, Mom. People do not bake pies anymore. That is kind of old-fashioned." He laughed, but not kindly. Julia joined in. I felt my face grow warm. I forced a smile. I said, "I just thought it would remind you of when you were little." He replied, Sure. Thanks." He put the pie on the counter, and did not mention it again. That moment stayed with me. It was small, but it stung. It was not just the pie. It was the feeling that I had become someone whose efforts were no longer seen. Someone whose place in his life had quietly been moved to the background. Still, I tried to hold on. I supported his work, even if I did not fully understand it. He was building a tech startup, something involving software solutions for small businesses. I had never been a part of the digital world, but I believed in him. I even made a quiet investment when the opportunity came. I used money from the savings I had built carefully over the years. He never knew. That was the point. I wanted to help without needing thanks. I only wanted to see him succeed. Now, as I look back, I wonder if that was foolish. If I had made myself so invisible in my support that he truly believed I had nothing left to offer. My normal life, from the outside, looked peaceful. But on the inside, I was beginning to feel something I could not quite name. A kind of hollowness. A question that whispered late at night. Was this really all I was meant to be now? I would smile at the neighbors. I would fold laundry, hum old songs, and plant new flowers in the front yard. But something inside me had begun to shift. A feeling that the world I had known was slowly changing, and I was not sure where I fit in anymore. Back then, I had no idea how deep that feeling would go. No idea that my quiet, careful life was about to be shaken. No idea that the son who once looked up to me would soon say something that would break me. But I also had no idea that I was stronger than I believed. And as I placed my teacup in the sink that morning, I felt it for the first time. Something was changing. It started with silence, not the peaceful kind that you find in early mornings or between soft pages of a book. This was the heavy kind, the kind that sits between people who once shared everything. It was a Thursday evening. I remember it clearly because I had just come back from the community center. I had helped Mrs. Lancaster sort out donations for the winter drive. She is 82 and walks with a cane, but her spirit is stronger than most people I know. We always share a cup of tea after finishing our work. She talks about her husband, who passed 20 years ago. She still wears his wedding ring. I find that beautiful. When I got home that evening, I checked my phone as I always do. A habit. Hope, maybe. There were a few notifications, some spam emails, a message from the bank, and one group message from the neighborhood watch. Nothing from Aaron, nothing from Julia, nothing from Max. I sat on the couch, phone still in my hand. A strange thought crept in. When was the last time they had reached out to me first? I tried to shake it off. I told myself they were busy. Life in the city is fast. They have a child, a business, meetings, school, traffic. It is normal. They will call on Sunday. But still, the thought stayed, like a splinter under the skin. That weekend, I baked cinnamon muffins. Max loves them. I thought maybe I would drop by and surprise them. I wrapped the muffins neatly, tied them with a ribbon, and took the early train into the city. Their apartment is in one of those new glass buildings, cold on the outside, even though everything inside is warm and expensive. I waited a moment, after ringing the bell. When Julia opened the door, she looked surprised. Not in a good way. "Oh, Ellen, I was not expecting you." I held out the muffins. "I was just in the area. Thought I would bring something for Max." She took the box politely, but I noticed the way her eyes flicked toward the hallway behind her, as if checking to see if anyone else had seen me. Aaron came to the door next. He smiled, but it was tight. Forced. "Hey, Mom, everything all right?" I blinked. "Yes, of course. I just thought I would stop by." He stepped out and closed the door behind him. "It is just not the best time. We have a few people over. Work stuff." "Of course," I said quickly. "I will not stay. Just give Max a hug for me." "I will. Thanks for the muffins." And then he was gone. I stood in the hallway for a moment, feeling like a stranger in a building where my own family lived. I turned slowly, walked back toward the elevator, and held my breath until the doors closed. I should not have gone. I told myself that the whole way home. Later that night, I sat by my window again. My tea was cold. The muffins were probably still untouched on their kitchen counter. Something felt strange. Something deep in my chest. Not anger exactly, and not sadness either. Something more like distance. A quiet, growing distance that no one had mentioned out loud, but everyone seemed to agree was there. In the past, I would have talked to Aaron about it. I would have told him gently that I felt forgotten. I would have asked if something was wrong, but this time, I did not. Something held me back. The next few days passed slowly. On Sunday, I waited for his call. He did call. 5 minutes past 7. Right on time. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, sweetheart." We went through the motions. He asked how I was. I told him I was fine. I asked about Max, and he told me he was doing well in school. We talked about the weather, about traffic, about nothing. And then I said, "Did Max like the muffins?" There was a pause, a small one, but I heard it. "Oh, yes, he did. Thank you." But there was no warmth in his voice. No story about Max eating 3 in one sitting or saving one for his lunchbox. Just a flat, polite thank you. After we hung up, I stared at the phone in my hand. Something was missing, not from the call, but from us. The closeness, the laughter, the way he used to lean on me, ask for advice, share news, even his worries. It was gone. I began to wonder if I had become a symbol of the past to him, a piece of an old world that no longer fits into his new one. Maybe I had started to fade, not in the mirror, but in his eyes. That thought stung more than anything. I went to bed with a strange feeling in my chest. I could not describe it, but I knew it was real. I looked out the window one last time that night. The wind moved through the trees. A branch tapped gently against the glass, and I thought, without meaning to, I could feel something changing. The following week passed like fog. I went about my usual tasks, watering the garden, returning library books, preparing meals for one. But my mind was elsewhere. I kept thinking about Aaron's face when he opened the door. Not angry, not annoyed, just distant, as if I were someone from his childhood who he'd already packed away in a box, like old toys or school drawings. I tried to distract myself. I rearranged the guest room, even though no one has stayed in it for over a year. I took out old photo albums and spent an afternoon wiping dust off the covers. Some of the pictures made me smile. Aaron with spaghetti all over his face at age 2, or holding a model airplane he built in 5th grade. Others made me ache. Our last Christmas together before Julia, before work, before... Silence. I couldn't stop thinking. What had I done wrong? Had I said something? Had I overstayed my welcome without knowing it? Or was this just how things were now? Children grow up. They grow apart. It's natural, right? Still, that thought didn't sit right with me. It felt too clean, too easy. I didn't want to accept that the warmth between us had simply faded like an old photograph. I needed to understand, so I tried to find a reason. On Monday, I went to the market and ran into Diane, a friend from the community center. She's around my age and has 2 sons, both living abroad. They don't call much, she told me as we picked out apples. But I don't take it personally. They've got their own lives now. I nodded, pretending to agree. But something in me resisted that idea. Later that afternoon, I sat down at my kitchen table with a pen and paper. I do this sometimes when I can't make sense of things. I write. It's not poetry, not stories. Just thoughts, feelings. Whatever's inside me that doesn't want to stay quiet, I wrote. Why do I feel so left behind? I didn't expect daily visits or long phone calls. But I did expect to feel like I still mattered, that I still had a place in his world. Reading those words back made my chest feel tight. I remembered how, when Aaron was in high school, he would come home and sit at the kitchen table while I cooked dinner. He would tell me everything about classes, friends, dreams he had the night before. He would laugh at my terrible jokes and ask my opinion on things that mattered to him. He made me feel like I was part of his world. Now, I couldn't even tell you what kind of work his company actually did. Software solutions for small businesses was the phrase he used, but what did that mean, really? I had invested a quiet, significant amount in his startup early on, not for credit, not for control, just to support him. He didn't know. It was me. That was intentional. I never wanted him to feel pressured. I only wanted him to succeed. But now I wondered if that had been the right choice. Maybe by staying silent, by hiding how involved I really was. I had allowed myself to be erased. I didn't want to interfere in his life. I only wanted to belong in it. A few days later, I received an invitation in the mail. It was a printed flyer for a business networking event hosted by Aaron's startup. I almost tossed it aside. Surely it was just a courtesy mailing, not meant for me. But something stopped me. I read the invitation carefully. It was for potential investors, partners, and press. There was a list of speakers. Aaron was one of them. So was Julia. There would be a panel, refreshments, a Q&A. I looked at the RSVP card and traced the gold lettering with my finger. For a brief moment, I considered going. Not to make a scene. Not to confront anyone, just to see him. To hear him speak. To remember what it felt like to be proud of him without feeling like I had to hide it. But then I heard my own voice in my head. You don't belong there. That world isn't yours anymore. I folded the card and placed it in the drawer where I keep things I'm not ready to deal with. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet, but inside my mind was loud. I kept replaying conversations that never happened, rewriting moments I wished had gone differently. Aaron used to tell me everything. Now, I wasn't sure he even saw me as someone he could talk to at all. I felt confused, lost between who I had been as a mother and who I was allowed to be now. Somewhere in the dark, I whispered to myself, "What do you do when your own child no longer sees you?" The silence had no answer, but I knew this. Couldn't go on. I didn't expect to cry over soup. But that's what happened. One small comment over dinner, and suddenly everything inside me cracked open like a dropped bowl on a tiled floor. It was Sunday again, our usual call day. But this time, Aaron suggested something different. "Why don't you come to the city for lunch?" he said. "We'll go to that new bistro Julia's been raving about." I hesitated. After the last visit, I wasn't sure if I should. But something in his voice, maybe guilt, maybe duty, sounded softer. So I said yes. When I arrived, they were already seated. Julia looked elegant, as always, scrolling through her phone while sipping something with foam on top. Aaron stood to greet me, kissed my cheek, and pulled out my chair. It felt almost like old times. Almost. The restaurant was bright and modern, all white walls and hanging plants. I glanced at the menu, trying to understand the unfamiliar dishes. Everything had ingredients I didn't recognize. Goji, tahini, miso-glazed something. I settled on a lentil soup. It seemed the safest option. Max joined us after a soccer match. His cheeks were flushed, his hair damp with sweat. He looked at me and smiled, but it was distracted, distant, like he was already thinking about something else. Still, I was happy just to sit with them. I asked about school, about work, about his friends. They answered politely. The conversation flowed, though not deeply. Like we were all floating on the surface of something no one wanted to dive into. Then the food came. I took a bite of my soup and smiled. This reminds me of the lentil stew I used to make. Remember that, Aaron? He looked up from his plate, raised his eyebrows slightly, and said with a chuckle, "Oh, come on, Mom. Yours was more rustic." The way he said it, light, casual, even with a small grin, should have been harmless. But it wasn't. Julia laughed. Max snorted softly, though he probably didn't understand why. And me? I froze. Rustic. The word echoed in my mind. A word used to politely insult something old-fashioned, outdated, unrefined. He was talking about my cooking, my food, the meals I had made for him when he was a boy, when money was tight, when time was short, when I stayed up late after work, just to prepare something warm and filling for him. My stew had filled his stomach on days when he came home crying. My bread had been on the table during every birthday, every holiday, every single moment that mattered. But now it was a joke. I smiled tightly and took another spoonful of soup. I didn't say anything. What could I say? Aaron didn't notice. He moved on, talking about the restaurant's minimalist design, about Julia's new marketing campaign. I nodded along, but the warmth had left my body. I felt cold, even in the sunlit room. The rest of lunch passed in a blur. When I left, Aaron hugged me briefly. "We'll do this again soon," he said. I nodded, but inside something had shifted. That night, I stood in my kitchen staring at my old cookbooks. Some of them had pages so worn the print was fading. I ran, my fingers over the recipes I had memorized decades ago. My hands knew these meals by heart. They were part of who I was. But to my son, they were a joke. I sat at the table and let the tears come. Quiet, careful tears, the kind you don't sob, but simply let fall because holding them in hurts more. It wasn't just about the soup. Not really. It was what it symbolized. That my efforts, my care, my love expressed through flour and salt and boiling pots meant nothing now. Or worse, that they were seen as quaint, embarrassing, not good enough. He didn't mean to hurt me, I know that. He probably doesn't even remember what he said, but I do, because words matter, especially from the people who once looked up at you, like you were the sun. I thought of the investment I had made in his business, quiet, hidden support. I had believed in him more than he knew. I had given him something from my savings. Money I had planned to use for a trip, or maybe to fix the roof, but I didn't hesitate. I wanted to help him build his dream. And yet here I was, being mocked, however lightly, for the meals I used to make with love. I poured myself a cup of tea, sat by the window, and watched the shadows grow longer across the lawn. I had always believed that love would be enough, that my son would remember, that he would always see me, not just as a figure in his past, but as someone who still mattered. But I was starting to realize something difficult. When people move forward, they don't always bring you with them. After that lunch, something inside me shifted. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't even write it down like I usually do. I just sat with the feeling, a quiet, heavy knowing that things weren't what I thought they were. I had spent so many years believing I knew Aaron. I raised him. I held him when he was sick. I clapped the loudest at his school plays, stayed up nights helping him with science projects, paid for his college education when I could barely afford a new winter coat for myself. But the man I sat across from at that restaurant, he wasn't a stranger exactly, just someone I hadn't taken the time to really see in a long time. And that realization, it was terrifying. So I started paying attention, not to be nosy or suspicious, but to understand. I subscribed to the newsletter for his startup, even though I knew I wasn't on the intended audience list. I followed the company on social media, read the interviews he gave, and listened to a podcast where he talked about leadership and vision. Aaron sounded confident, polished. He used words like scalable, disruptive, and growth trajectory. But nowhere in those slick interviews was the boy who once ran barefoot through the sprinkler in our backyard, or the teenager who hugged me tight after his first heartbreak. He had grown, yes. But into what? One night, I watched a video clip from a tech conference he spoke at. He was introduced with applause. The stage lights hit his face, and for a moment, I felt proud. He wore a crisp navy blazer, held a remote in his hand, and presented a slideshow full of numbers and graphs. I recognized none of it, but the way he spoke, clear, controlled, impressive, reminded me why people listened to him. Then came the Q&A. Someone asked about support in the early days of his company. He smiled. I was lucky, he said. I had a great partner, smart, advisors, and a very generous angel investor who took a chance on me. Still don't know who it was. The crowd laughed politely. I didn't, because that angel investor was me. And in that moment, I realized something. He hadn't even tried to find out who it was. Or maybe he had, and just didn't care enough. It wasn't the lack of credit that stung. It was the silence. The fact that I had given something meaningful, something real. and it had disappeared into the background of his life like an extra in a movie. Still, I watched the whole clip. Then I watched it again. Afterward, I sat in the dark with a cup of tea, staring at the faint reflection of myself in the window. Who was I now? Not a businesswoman, not a guide, not even, it seemed, a mother in the way I once was. Just someone who had poured love into every corner of her son's life, only to find those corners repainted in colors she didn't recognize. That week, I made a decision. I would stop guessing. Stop hoping he'd notice me. Instead, I would observe, carefully. Like I was reading a book I thought I knew, only to discover a whole new chapter I'd skipped. I paid attention to what he posted, what he shared, who he praised. I looked through public company reports, investor statements, even watched a live stream of an office tour Julia gave on their Instagram. And here's what I saw. They valued image, perception, applause. Everything was curated, presented, beautiful. Even their office coffee bar looked like it belonged in a magazine. Julia spoke about brand values and relevance. She mentioned family only once, in a joke about how her parents didn't understand modern marketing. I felt something settle inside me, low and hard like a stone. It wasn't that they didn't love me. It was that they didn't see me. To them, I was quaint. Background. Maybe even a little embarrassing. And worst of all, I had made it easy for them. By never asking for recognition. By never reminding them who I was. By thinking that quiet love would always be enough. So that night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened a document on my computer, the one where I kept the records of my investments, passwords, legal, notes, even a draft of my will, and I added a line, just one sentence. Aaron is not to be informed of my identity as the initial silent investor, until I say otherwise. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about punishing him. It was about clarity. If I didn't matter in their world now, then fine. But I would choose how and when they discovered just how much I mattered. And something about that decision, quiet as it was, made me feel powerful again. For a long time, I didn't think much about the woman I used to be before I became Aaron's mother. Not because she wasn't important, but because life made it easy to forget her. She existed in the quiet before diapers and school lunches, before spelling tests and college tuition, before balancing overtime shifts with grocery lists. I left her somewhere between my last term as an accounting student and my first day as a full-time mother. But after that night, after watching Aaron, on stage in a sleek conference hall thanking everyone but me, I sat alone and stared at the blinking cursor on my laptop screen. I had added that one firm line to my file. Aaron is not to be informed of my identity as the initial silent investor, until I say otherwise. It was a small act, but it made something inside me shift. A voice, faint but persistent, began to rise again, and that voice belonged to the woman I used to be. She was sharp, determined. She had opinions and didn't shrink to fit in. She once wrote an entire business plan for a catering startup in a spiral notebook during her lunch breaks, back when Aaron was still in preschool. I never started the business. It was never the right time, or the right mood, or there was always something else we needed more. School uniforms, car repairs, medical bills. I told myself I'd get back to it someday, but someday never came. Instead, I tucked the plan into the back of a drawer, behind warranty papers and old greeting cards. The next morning, I pulled that drawer open. It took some digging, years of old paperwork, expired coupons and yellowing receipts. But I found it. The notebook was worn and stained at the corners, the ink faded but still legible. My handwriting looked younger, more confident. As I flipped through it, memories surfaced like light under ice. I remembered how excited I'd been while writing, each section. The menu ideas, the target audience, the budgeting projections. It wasn't just a dream. It was a strategy. A real, tangible plan for something I believed in. I ran my fingers over the cover and smiled. That woman, the one who filled these pages with possibility, she was still here. She hadn't gone anywhere. She'd just been waiting for me to remember her. I made a cup of coffee and sat down with the notebook, this time with a pen in hand. I began updating it, crossing out dated details, adding new ones, and making notes in the margins. I didn't know what I was building toward, but I knew I wanted to build something again. Not for Aaron, not to prove anything, but for me. Later that day, I went up into the attic. It was cold and dusty, filled with boxes we'd never fully unpacked after Aaron's father died. Most of them were Aaron's childhood things, trophies, school papers, a box of old Halloween costumes. In the back corner, I found something I'd forgotten existed, my grandmother's recipe box. It was wooden, scratched at the edges, and still smelled faintly of nutmeg and old paper. Inside were handwritten index cards, each one in her delicate script. I used to watch her make these recipes when I was a girl, watching her move with quiet purpose, never rushing, never apologizing for taking her time. My lentil stew was in there. So was her honey bread, her rhubarb crumble. Dishes that were more than food. They were memory, heritage, care. I took the box downstairs and began sorting the cards. Then I did something simple, but meaningful. I made the honey bread. As it baked, the scent filled the kitchen, warm and familiar. It made me feel like myself again. Like all the versions of me were sitting in that kitchen together. The young woman with dreams. The mother who always found a way. The widow who kept going when the house felt too quiet. And the woman I was, now rediscovering something powerful. When the bread was done, I sliced a piece and ate it slowly. It wasn't perfect, a little uneven on the top, but it was mine. That night, I looked in the mirror and didn't see someone forgotten. I saw someone returning to herself. Aaron may not have seen my worth. Julia may have thought my cooking was outdated. And Max, well, he was just a boy, too young to understand any of it. But I understood. I knew the value of quiet resilience. I knew the strength it took to keep giving without being seen. And now, I knew something else. It was time to be seen again, not by them, by myself. The next morning, I woke with a quiet determination. I decided to take a walk to the local farmer's market. It was early spring, and the air still had a crispness that reminded me of new beginnings. The market was a small gathering of stalls, filled with fresh vegetables, homemade bread, jars of honey, and flowers blooming in cheerful bouquets. As I wandered between the rows of colorful produce, I noticed a woman at one of the stands selling fresh eggs. She was around my age with silver-streaked hair pulled back into a loose bun. She smiled kindly when I stopped to admire the eggs arranged carefully in straw. "Good morning," she said warmly. "Good morning," I replied, feeling a little lighter than I had in weeks. We began talking. Her name was Grace, and she had been running this farm stand for nearly 20 years. She spoke about the land she tended, the challenges of farming, and the simple joys of working outdoors. Her eyes sparkled when she described the seasons and how each one brought something new to the market. Listening to Grace, I felt a strange comfort. It was as if, in her stories, I could find pieces of myself again. The woman who once dreamed of owning her own business. The woman who cared deeply about the small things in life, the kind of things that built a life quietly day by day. I bought a dozen eggs and a small bundle of fresh herbs. Then I asked Grace a question that surprised even me. Have you ever felt invisible? Grace looked at me with gentle understanding. Oh, yes, she said without hesitation. Sometimes when people walk past my stall without stopping, or when my family does not ask how my day was, it can feel very lonely. I nodded. That is how I have been feeling lately, like I am here, but not really seen. Grace smiled softly. You are not alone. Many of us feel that way at times. But sometimes, it is about choosing how we see ourselves, not just waiting for others to see us. Her words stayed with me as I walked home. It was strange to hear such honesty from a stranger, but also comforting. I realized that the pain I felt was not unique to my story with Aaron and Julia. It was a feeling many people lived with quietly. That afternoon, I decided to clean out the kitchen cupboards. I found some old jars of spices and bags of flour that had been forgotten. As I organized, I thought about the meals I used to cook for Aaron when he was a boy. I remembered his favorite, spaghetti with tomato sauce made from fresh basil and garlic. How he would beg for extra cheese and eat with a smile so wide it lit up the whole room. The memories were bittersweet, but they made me smile. For the first time in a long while, I felt a small flicker of hope. That evening, I wrote a letter to Aaron. Not to send it, not to confront him. Just to write down my feelings honestly, I told him how proud I was of the man he had become, even if we had grown apart. I told him I loved him, and that I hoped he would understand one day what family really means. Writing the letter was like opening a window in a stuffy room. The words flowed gently, and tears came quietly as I wrote. But they were tears of healing, not just pain. I folded the letter and put it away in a drawer. It was a small act of courage, a way of facing the truth I could not yet say aloud. Over the next few days, I continued to visit the market. I spoke with Grace and a few other vendors. I started to notice the small beauties in everyday life, the way sunlight caught the leaves of the trees, the sound of children laughing nearby, the scent of fresh bread baking at the stall down the way. These moments reminded me that life was still moving forward, that I could still find joy even in hard times. One afternoon, Julia called. I did not answer. Instead, I sat quietly with the phone in my hand and thought about the woman at the market who had reminded me to see myself differently. I was still hurt by Julia's words and actions, but I was learning to protect my heart, to choose when and how to engage. Maybe one day I would answer that call, but not today. Today, I was choosing myself. That evening, the house felt heavier than usual. The quiet was not peaceful. It was filled with the weight of questions I had carried for too long. I knew that if I did not ask Aaron directly, the silence between us would only grow. I needed to hear the truth from his own lips. The next day, I stood outside his apartment door, heart pounding in my chest. The sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows across the street. I told myself to breathe, to be calm, but inside, A storm was building. I raised my hand and knocked gently. When Aaron opened the door, he looked surprised. His smile was polite, but distant. "Mom," he said, stepping aside to let me in. The apartment smelled of fresh coffee and electronics. It was neat and modern, just like him. I sat down on the couch, careful to keep my voice steady. "Aaron, I need to ask you something." "Important," I began. "I have been feeling that you are pulling away from me. It feels like I am not part of your life anymore. Did I do something wrong?" He looked down, avoiding my eyes. "It is not about you. It is about who I am now. I am building something important, and I need people around me who understand that, people who are relevant to my world." His words stung. The word relevant echoed in my mind. I felt a tightness in my chest. "You said I was not relevant anymore?" He nodded, slowly. "I did not want to hurt you. I just thought it was true. We are different people now, Mom. You have your life, and I have mine." I swallowed hard and took a deep breath. "Aaron, you do not have to leave me behind to succeed. I want to support you, but I need honesty. Please tell me, is there something you are not telling me?" For a long moment, he hesitated. Then his voice softened. "It is about the business, the startup, the investors, the decisions." I waited, hoping he would say more. Instead, he added quietly, "I want you to be proud of me." His words were honest, but the distance between us felt wider than ever. I realized the truth was more complicated than I had imagined. He was scared to share everything, and I was scared to hear it. That night, I lay awake thinking about our conversation. I felt sadness and hope mingled together. Sadness for the space growing between us. Hope because he had not closed the door completely. The next morning, I called my friend Linda. She had known Aaron since he was a boy, and I trusted her deeply. I told her what Aaron had said. She sighed and said, "That word relevant hurts. Helen. But sometimes people say things like that because they are afraid. Aaron is trying to find his place. Maybe he feels he cannot do that with you because he worries you will not understand." I nodded, tears in my eyes. "I just want him to see me, as his mother who loves him." Linda's voice was soft but firm. "Keep showing up. Be patient. When he is ready, he will let you in." Her words gave me strength. I decided I would not give up on Aaron or myself. I would keep asking the hard questions, even if the answers hurt, because the truth was worth the risk. Over the next few days, I wrote letters to Aaron. Letters full of love, memories, and questions. I never sent them, but writing helped me clear my mind and find courage. One afternoon, as I watered the plants on my balcony, a message arrived on my phone. It was from Aaron. It read, "Can we talk? I think it is time." My heart raced. The moment I had waited for was here. That evening, Aaron came over. We sat in the living room, the silence between us heavy but hopeful. I reached for his hand. "Thank you for reaching out. I want to understand you better. Please tell me everything." He looked at me, tired but honest. "I was afraid you would be disappointed, that you would not accept the truth. I shook my head gently. I am your mother. I will always love you no matter what. He took a deep breath and began to tell me about the startup, the challenges, and the investors. When he mentioned a silent partner, my heart skipped a beat. I have something to tell you, I said quietly. I am that silent partner. I have been supporting you because I believed in you, even when you did not believe in me. His eyes widened. For a moment he was speechless. I never wanted to hurt you, I continued. I wanted you to grow on your own, to be proud of what you built. He smiled faintly. Mom, I was wrong to say those things. You are more relevant than you know. Tears filled my eyes. I squeezed his hand. We both made mistakes, but we can start again, together. In that moment, the walls between us began to crumble. The silence was broken, and for the first time in a long time, I felt hope. After that evening with Aaron, my mind would not rest. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, turning over every word, every look, every silence between us. The truth had finally begun to surface, but it had opened a floodgate of thoughts and feelings that I could not contain. I kept replaying our conversation in my head. The way he hesitated before telling me about the investors. The surprise in his eyes when I revealed I was the silent partner. I thought about the distance that had grown between us, and wondered how long it had been there, quietly building until it felt like a wall. Why had he not told me sooner? Was it because he feared I would judge him? Or was he trying to protect me from stress, from worry? I wished I could understand his thoughts better. I wanted to believe that he still needed me, even if he could not say it out loud. The house was so quiet at night, but inside, my mind was noisy. I found myself unable to focus during the day. At work, my hands moved automatically over papers, but my thoughts were far away, tangled in memories and worries. I tried to push the doubts aside, but they clung to me stubbornly. Every small thing reminded me of Aaron. The sound of his laugh on the phone, the smell of coffee he liked, the way he used to curl up on the couch and share stories from his day. I missed the closeness we once had, before business and pride put distance between us. I realized how much I had taken for granted. The simple moments of connection, the feeling that I mattered to him. Now, that feeling was fragile, like glass, that could shatter at any moment. At times I felt anger rising inside me. How could he say I was not relevant? Did he not see all I had done for him? The years of support, the sacrifices made quietly so he could follow his dreams? It felt unfair and painful. But then, the anger faded, replaced by a deeper sadness. I saw that Aaron was trying to find his own way, struggling with his fears and doubts, just as I had struggled with mine. We were both lost in a maze of expectations and misunderstandings. I began to understand that healing would not be quick or easy. It would take time for us to rebuild trust, to learn to listen and speak honestly again. I was willing to wait. I had to be patient with him and with myself. One night, unable to sleep, I went to the kitchen and made a cup of tea. I sat by the window and watched the rain fall softly outside. The sound was calming, like a gentle lullaby. Tears slipped down my cheeks as I thought about how fragile life could be. How important it was to hold on to love when it felt like it was slipping away. I whispered to myself, I will not give up on us. I will keep trying. During those long nights, I also thought about my own feelings of loneliness. I had always been the strong one, the caretaker. But now I realized how much I needed support too. It was okay to feel scared and uncertain. It was okay to ask for help. Slowly, I started to open up to close friends. I shared pieces of my heart that I had kept locked away. Their kindness and understanding gave me comfort and strength. One afternoon, while out for a walk, I met an old neighbor who stopped to chat. She listened as I spoke about my worries and hopes. Her gentle words reminded me that I was not alone. Many people face struggles in their families, and healing was possible. As the days passed, I made a promise to myself. I would not let doubt and fear control me. I would focus on the small steps, sending a kind message, sharing a meal, simply being present. These small moments could rebuild the bridge between Aaron and me. I also reminded myself to take care of my own heart. I started journaling every morning, writing down my feelings and dreams. It helped me see my pain clearly and find ways to grow stronger. Through all this, I learned that love was not perfect or easy. It was patient, sometimes quiet, sometimes messy, but it was always worth fighting for. Every evening, I would check my phone, hoping for a message from Aaron. Sometimes there was one, sometimes not. I did not want to rush or pressure him. I wanted him to come back to me when he was ready. One night. I dreamed of a future where we could laugh together again, where the past pain was softened by understanding. I held on to that hope like a precious light in the dark. As I closed my eyes to sleep, I whispered, "Tomorrow is another day. I will keep believing." The days after my long nights of thinking and hoping were not easy. I carried a quiet pain inside me that no one could see. It was like a soft ache in my chest, a loneliness that settled deep in my bones. It was not loud or dramatic, but it was always there, reminding me of what had changed between Aaron and me. I tried to keep busy with small tasks around the house. I cleaned the windows, watered the plants, and cooked meals with extra care. But even as I worked, my heart felt heavy. Sometimes, I found myself sitting in silence, staring out the window as the world moved on without me. On one rainy afternoon, I sat in my favorite chair by the window. The sky was gray, and the drops of rain slid slowly down the glass. The room was dim, with only the soft light from the lamp nearby. I wrapped a warm blanket around my shoulders and let the tears come. I did not try to stop them. The tears were honest. They told the story that my words could not. I thought about all the years I had spent raising Aaron, the sleepless nights, the laughter, the arguments, and the endless hope that he would grow into a good man. I remembered the day he was born, how small and fragile he was in my arms. And now here we were, strangers in the same house. I cried not just because of the distance between us, but because I still loved him deeply. Love does not disappear when things are hard. It stays, even when pain fills the spaces in between. I reached for the small photo album on the side table. It held pictures from our family vacations, birthdays, and holidays. I turned the pages slowly, remembering moments when we were happy and close. I smiled softly at a photo of Aaron blowing out the candles on his 10th birthday cake. His eyes sparkled with excitement and innocence. The quiet pain inside me was mixed with memories, both beautiful and sad. I wished I could go back to those times, to hold my son close and tell him how much he meant to me. But I knew that the past was gone. The only way forward was to find peace in the present. That evening, I made a cup of chamomile tea and sat down in the living room. I turned on the radio to a soft classical station. The gentle music filled the room and calmed my restless mind. As I sipped the warm tea, I thought about how silence can speak in many ways. The silence between Aaron and me was full of things left unsaid. Apologies, fears, and hopes. It was like a heavy fog that made it hard to see clearly. I remembered something Linda had told me during one of our talks. Sometimes pain needs to be felt fully before it can heal. So, I allowed myself to feel the sadness without fighting it. I accepted that healing would take time, and that it was okay to be vulnerable. Later that week, I found comfort in small moments. A friendly neighbor stopped by to chat. We spoke about the weather, the flowers in the garden, and the books we were reading. Her kindness reminded me that connection could still be found, even in hard times. I also started writing again. I had not touched my journal in weeks, but now I poured my thoughts onto the pages. Writing helped me understand my feelings and gave me a space to release the sadness that words spoken aloud could not. One night, I wrote about the quiet pain in my heart. I wrote about the fear of losing Aaron and the hope that one day we could be close again. I wrote about forgiveness, of him, of myself, and of the past. In the silence of my room, I whispered a promise to myself. I will carry this pain gently. It is part of my story, but it will not define me. The days passed slowly, each one a step on the road toward healing. Some days were easier than others. Sometimes I felt a little lighter. Sometimes the sadness returned like a wave. But through it all, I learned to be patient with myself. I learned that strength is not the absence of pain, but the courage to face it. One afternoon, as I watched the rain fall again, I felt a quiet peace settle over me. The pain was still there, but it felt less sharp. It was a reminder of love, loss, and the power of hope. I knew the journey was not over. There would be more challenges ahead, more moments of doubt and fear. But I also knew that I was not alone. I had my memories, my friends, and the hope that Aaron and I would find each other again. As the rain slowed and the clouds began to part, I felt a small light inside me. It was the light of patience, love, and the quiet strength that comes from facing pain with an open heart. The days grew heavier, and I felt an urgent need inside me, a need for truth, for clarity, for answers. I could no longer hold back the questions that filled my mind and my heart. I needed to understand what was really happening between Aaron and me. I needed to hear the truth from his lips. One afternoon, I found him sitting in the study, staring at his laptop with a tired expression. The house was quiet except for the soft tapping of the keyboard. My heart pounded as I stepped closer, unsure of how to begin. "Aaron," I said softly, "I need to talk to you. Please." He looked up, surprise flickering in his eyes. For a moment, I thought he might close the laptop and walk away, but he did not. Instead, he nodded and gestured to the chair across from him. I sat down, trying to steady my breathing. I wanted to speak calmly, but inside I was a storm of emotions. Fear, hope, anger, and love all tangled together. "I need to know," I began, "why you said I was not relevant anymore. What did you really mean?" Aaron sighed deeply and ran, his hand through his hair. "Mom, I did not mean to hurt you. It felt like you were not part of what was happening in my life. The business, the startup. It was a world I thought you would not understand. I listened carefully, trying to understand his side. But I have been with you from the beginning. I helped you, even if you did not see it. He looked away, ashamed. I know, and I am sorry. I was scared. I wanted to prove I could do it on my own. His words stung, but they also made sense. Aaron was young and proud, eager to stand on his own 2 feet, but in doing so, he had pushed me away. I reached out and took his hand gently. Aaron, I want to be there for you. I want us to be honest with each other. Please, do not shut me out. He squeezed my hand in return, a small sign of connection. I want that too, Mom. I want to fix this. We sat together in silence for a while, the weight of our feelings hanging between us. It was not an easy conversation, but it was real. It was a beginning. Later that evening, I found myself reflecting on our talk. I realized how much we had both been afraid of rejection, failure, and disappointment. Those fears had built walls around us, walls that now needed to come down. I also thought about how much I had held inside me, the hurt, the loneliness, the feeling of being invisible. I understood now that speaking my truth was the first step toward healing. The next few days were filled with small but important moments. Aaron and I shared meals again, talked about the business openly, and even laughed together like we used to. It felt like we were rebuilding a bridge, one plank at a time. But I knew the road ahead was still long. Trust once broken does not return overnight. We would have to work at it every day, with patience and kindness. One morning, as I prepared breakfast, Aaron came into the kitchen with a thoughtful look. Mom, I want you to be involved, not just as an investor, but as my mother and partner. His words warmed my heart. I smiled and nodded. I want that too, Aaron. We will take it one step at a time. That day, I felt a new strength inside me, a strength born from speaking my truth and facing the pain. I knew there would be difficult days ahead, but I also knew we could face them together. As evening fell, I sat by the window again, watching. The sky turned soft shades of pink and purple. The quiet pain was still there, but now it was mixed with hope. I whispered to myself, I will keep asking for answers. I will keep searching for truth, because that is how we heal. The truth arrived on a quiet afternoon, not with a storm, but like a soft rain, slow, steady, and impossible to ignore. I finally understood what had been hidden beneath the surface all this time. Aaron sat across from me at the kitchen table, his eyes tired but sincere. He had asked me to meet him so we could talk honestly, without distractions or defenses. I felt a knot in my stomach, a mix of hope and fear swirling together. I have something to tell you, he said, his voice low. It is about the startup, the business you helped start without telling anyone. I looked at him carefully. He had always been secretive about some things, but now it felt different, more serious. You already know I was a silent partner, I replied gently. But I do not know why you did not want anyone to know. Aaron swallowed hard. Because I was ashamed. Ashamed that I could not do it alone. Ashamed that I needed your help. His words surprised me. I had never imagined that my son, so proud and confident, could feel such doubt. It hurt to hear that he had felt ashamed of me, his mother. But why did you say I was not relevant? Why push me away? He looked down, ashamed. I was scared that if people knew you were involved, they would say I was only successful because of you. I wanted to prove myself. I nodded slowly. I understand that fear, Aaron. But shutting me out hurt us both. He reached out and took my hand. I never wanted to hurt you. I just did not know how to handle everything. In that moment, I saw the boy I had raised, vulnerable, afraid, and needing love just like anyone else. I want you to know something, I said, my voice soft but firm. You have always been relevant to me, not because of the business, but because you are my son. Tears welled in his eyes. Thank you, Mom. I want us to be honest and open from now on. The weight that had been between us started to lift, replaced by a fragile hope. That evening, I reflected on what I had learned. The truth was not just about the business or the silent partnership. It was about trust, fear, and the walls we build to protect ourselves. Aaron's fear of failure had made him push me away. My fear of losing him had made me hold back my pain. Now we were both learning how to be vulnerable again. I thought about all the years of silence and misunderstanding. How many moments had passed where we could have spoken openly, but did not? How many tears had been hidden behind smiles? But I also saw the possibility of healing. If we could be honest now, we could rebuild our relationship on a stronger foundation. Remembered a quote I once read. Truth is the bridge between hearts. That day, I felt we had started to cross that bridge together. In the days that followed, Aaron and I spent more time talking. We shared our fears, hopes, and dreams. We laughed and cried. We planned for the future, not just as business partners, but as mother and son. One morning, Aaron surprised me with breakfast in bed. He had made my favorite pancakes and brewed a fresh cup of tea. For the woman who never stopped believing in me, he said with a smile. I felt a warmth in my heart that I had not felt in months. It was the warmth of forgiveness, understanding, and love. I realized that understanding the truth was the first step toward freedom, from pain, from anger, and from silence. Now I was ready to move forward, not as a forgotten partner, but as a woman who knew her worth and the power of truth. The moment I decided to walk away was not filled with anger or shouting. It was quiet, almost like a gentle closing of a door I had held open for far too long. I needed space, not just outside the house, but inside my heart and mind. After our conversation, I realized something important. Understanding the truth was not enough. Sometimes, healing requires distance. Sometimes, I had to step back to find myself again. I remember the morning clearly. The sunlight was soft, pouring through the kitchen window. Aaron was busy preparing for a meeting, his mind clearly elsewhere. I watched him for a moment, feeling a mix of love and pain. I need some time, I said finally, my voice steady. Time to think, to breathe, to be on my own. He looked up, surprised. Where will you go? I do not know yet, I admitted, but I cannot stay here right now. Not with everything that has happened. Aaron nodded slowly, understanding in his eyes. I will respect your space. Just promise me you will come back. I smiled faintly. I will. But right now I need to walk away. Packing a small bag was harder than I thought. It was not the clothes or the things I needed. It was the memories. The years of laughter, tears, and shared moments that filled every corner of the house. I took one last look around, the room that had been my sanctuary and my battlefield. I closed the door gently behind me and stepped outside. The air was fresh, and the world seemed larger than I remembered. I felt both lost and free. I did not have a plan. I just walked, letting my feet take me where they wanted. The neighborhood looked familiar but distant, like a place I had left behind without realizing it. As I walked, I thought about everything that had led me here. The years of feeling invisible, the sharp words that had hurt me, the silence between Aaron and me. It all came rushing back. But I also thought about the strength it took to walk away. It was not weakness to leave. It was courage. For the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to feel the pain without running from it. I let the tears fall, unashamed and real. Sitting on a park bench, I watched the world move around me. Children played, couples walked, hand in hand, and the sun shone brightly. Life continued, even when I felt like stopping. I realized that walking away was not about giving up. It was about protecting myself. It was about saying, I deserve respect. I deserve peace. That day, I made a promise to myself. I would not let anyone make me feel irrelevant again. I would not stay silent when my heart needed to speak. I called a close friend and told her where I was. She listened without judgment, offering words of comfort and strength. You are brave, she said. Sometimes walking away is the best thing you can do. Her words stayed with me. I began to see my walk, not as an ending, but as a new beginning. In the following days, I stayed at her house, surrounded by kindness and understanding. I spent hours journaling, reflecting on my feelings and hopes. Each day brought new challenges. Loneliness crept in, and doubt whispered its cruel words. But I held on to the promise I made, to myself. I thought about Aaron often. I wondered if he missed me, if he was sorry. But I knew I could not live in his shadow. I had to find my own light. One evening, I looked in the mirror and saw a woman changed. She was tired but determined, broken but healing. I whispered to my reflection, I am walking away to find myself, and I will come back stronger. That night, I slept peacefully for the first time in months. The pain was still there, but it no longer controlled me. Walking away was my choice. It was my power. And with each step, I was learning how to be free. Walking away was the hardest thing I have ever done. But leaving did not mean the pain disappeared. In fact, the pain stayed with me. Quiet, constant, like a shadow that would not leave. It settled deep inside my chest, making each breath feel heavy. I thought that by leaving the house I could escape the hurt. But the truth was, the hurt was not tied to any place. It was tied to my heart. Each morning, I woke up hoping the pain would be gone. It was not. It lingered, stubborn and unkind. Some days, the pain was sharp like a sudden cut. I felt it when I remembered Aaron's words, the ones that made me feel irrelevant. I heard his voice saying things I wished he could take back. But they were there, echoing in my mind. Other days, the pain was dull and slow. It felt like a heavy fog that wrapped around me, making it hard to move forward. I tried to keep busy. I cleaned the guest room where I stayed. I cooked meals, and I read books. But no matter what I did, the pain waited for me when I was alone. At night, the house was silent, except for my thoughts. The quiet made the pain louder. I would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if things would ever be the same again. Sometimes I would cry softly, not because I wanted to be sad, but because the pain was too much to hold inside. I remembered the years of sacrifice, the times I put Aaron's needs before my own. I wondered if he even noticed all I had done. It hurt to think that he might not. But with the pain, there was also something else, a quiet strength growing inside me. It was small and fragile, but it was there. I reminded myself that pain was a part of healing, that it meant I was still alive, still feeling, still human. I reached out to friends, even when it felt hard. They listened and helped me see that I was not alone. Their kindness was like a warm blanket around my heart. One day, as I walked through the park near my friend's house, I noticed the trees. Their branches were bare, but they stood tall, waiting for spring. I thought about how trees lose their leaves but do not die. They rest and grow again. I wanted to be like those trees, to rest in my pain and grow stronger. I also began to write in my journal every day. Writing helped me understand my feelings. It was like talking to a friend who would never judge or interrupt. Some entries were filled with sadness. Others had hopes and dreams for the future. Slowly, the pages filled with my story. I realized that even though the pain stayed, it was teaching me something important. It was teaching me about patience, about self-love, and about the power to keep going even when it feels impossible. The pain reminded me that I mattered, that my feelings mattered. And one evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in soft colors, I felt a quiet peace. The pain was still there, but it no longer felt like a prison. It felt like a part of me, a part I could accept. I whispered to myself, "This pain is not forever. It is a step on my journey." The journey was not easy. It still had moments of sadness and loneliness. But it also had moments of hope. I knew I could not rush the healing. I had to let it happen in its own time. And so, I stayed with the pain. I let it be a teacher instead of an enemy. I kept walking, one step at a time, because even when the pain stays, life goes on. And so do I. Sometimes, when the pain was quiet, a different feeling would take its place. I miss the past. I miss the times when things were simpler, when laughter filled the rooms, and love seemed easy. The memories came to me like old photographs, faded, but precious. I remembered the family dinners we used to have. The kitchen was warm and full of smells, roast chicken, fresh bread, and my mother's apple pie cooling on the windowsill. Aaron would tell stories, his eyes shining with excitement about his dreams. We all believed the future was bright and full of promise. Those were the days when I felt connected, when I was relevant in his life, even without money or business deals. I was his mother, his supporter, and his friend. I could see the light in his eyes, and it made me feel alive. Now, those memories felt like a different world, one I longed to visit but could not stay in. I realized that the past could not be my home anymore. It was a place to visit, to learn from, but not to live in. I thought about the mistakes we had made, the things left unsaid, the moments when pride or fear had kept us apart. It was painful to admit, but it was true. I missed the past because it was a time before the hurt, before the distance grew between Aaron and me. One evening, I found an old photo album. I opened it carefully, running my fingers over the pictures. There we were, young and hopeful, smiling at family gatherings and holidays. My heart ached with a sweet sadness. I wondered if Aaron remembered those days the same way. Did he miss the past too? Or had he moved on completely? It was hard to think about, but I knew I had to face the truth. The past was a part of our story, but it was not all of it. I could not live in the past. I had to live in the present, with all its pain and possibility. Sometimes I spoke to Aaron on the phone. Our conversations were still cautious, filled with pauses and careful words. But there was a new openness, a willingness to listen and to try. We shared memories, laughed softly, and sometimes cried together. It was not perfect, but it was a beginning. I told him how much I missed the way things used to be. He told me he missed it too. Those moments gave me hope. Hope that we could rebuild, not by returning to the past, but by creating something new. I started to think about what that new future might look like. It was not about business or money. It was about trust, respect, and love. I began to see that missing the past was natural. It was part of the healing process. But I also knew I could not let it stop me from moving forward. One afternoon, I visited a quiet place by the river. The water flowed gently, always moving forward, never going back. I watched the ripples and thought about my own journey. Like the river, I had to keep moving. I had to let go of what was gone and find peace in what was to come. The past was a teacher, not a prison. I whispered to myself, I miss the past, but I will not live there. I carried the memories in my heart, but I chose to step into the sunlight of today, and with each step I grew stronger. I realized that it was okay to miss the past. It meant I cared deeply. It meant I loved. But it was also okay to let go. Because life is not about holding on to what was, but about embracing what is. And what is for me now is a chance to heal, to grow, and to love again. When the pain felt too heavy to carry alone, I reached out to my closest friend, Lisa. She had been my rock through many storms. I knew she would listen without judgment and offer comfort without rushing me to feel better. One quiet afternoon, I called her and asked if we could meet. Lisa's warm smile was the first thing I saw when I arrived at the small cafe where we often met. Her eyes held kindness, and I felt a little of the weight in my heart lift just by being near her. We ordered tea and sat by the window, watching the world move slowly outside. I told her everything, about the growing distance between Aaron and me, about the harsh words that had broken my spirit, and about the secret I carried inside. She listened carefully, nodding, but not interrupting. It was the first time I had spoken so openly about my feelings since everything started to fall apart. Talking with Lisa made me realize how much I had been holding inside. I had buried my sadness and my fears beneath a mask of strength, but now they spilled out like a river that could no longer be stopped. Lisa reached across the table and took my hand in hers. "You are not alone," she said softly. Sometimes we must share our pain to begin to heal. Her words felt like a gentle balm on my wounded heart. I was not weak for feeling hurt. I was human. We talked for hours about my hopes, my doubts, and the future I wanted to build. One where I could be proud of myself, regardless of what others thought. Lisa reminded me that my value was not measured by Aaron's words or actions. It was something deeper, something only I could define. I thought about the silent support I had given Aaron over the years, the sacrifices no one else saw. Lisa helped me see that those acts were a testament to my strength and love. They were not reasons to feel small or invisible. In the days that followed, Lisa and I spoke often. She encouraged me to take small steps toward caring for myself. We planned walks in the park, visits to art galleries, and quiet afternoons with books and music. Each moment spent with her reminded me that friendship was a powerful form of healing. It was a light that shone in the darkest places. One afternoon, Lisa surprised me with a small notebook. "Write your story," she said. "Write what you feel, what you dream, what you want to remember. It will help you find your voice." I took the notebook home and hesitated before opening it. The blank pages looked like a challenge, but wanted to try. Writing became a new way to express my thoughts. It was a safe space where I could be honest with myself. I wrote about my pain, my fears, and my hopes. I wrote about the moments when I felt invisible, and the moments when I remembered my worth. With every word, I felt a little stronger. Lisa's friendship showed me that healing was not a lonely path. It was one walked with others who care deeply and hold space for our pain and growth. Slowly, I began to trust again, not just in others, but in myself. I learned that trust was something I could give freely, but also protect carefully. Talking to Lisa reminded me that I was not defined by past hurts or broken relationships. I was defined by my courage to face those challenges and keep moving forward. I started to believe that my future could be different, filled with hope, respect, and love. Most importantly, I began to understand that my story was still being written. The past was a chapter, not the whole book. Lisa's friendship was a gift I cherished. It was a reminder that even in the darkest times, light could be found. And that light helped me see a path toward healing and new beginnings. I am grateful for the day I decided to talk, to open my heart, and to let a friend walk beside me. Because sometimes, healing begins with a simple conversation. Saying goodbye is never easy. It feels like closing a door on a part of your life, even when you know it is the right thing to do. For me, saying goodbye was a quiet and painful decision. It was a step toward healing and finding peace. I spent many days thinking about what goodbye really meant. Was it the end of hope? Or was it the beginning of something new? The answer was not clear at first. But deep inside, I knew I could not keep holding on to what was hurting me. The hardest part was saying goodbye to the dreams I had held for so long. Dreams of a close family, of being loved and appreciated by Aaron. Those dreams felt like they had slipped through my fingers like sand. I also said goodbye to the person I used to be, the hopeful mother who believed in the future with her son. That part of me had changed. It was time to accept that change and find a new way forward. Saying goodbye did not mean forgetting. It meant accepting the truth, even when it hurt. I had to accept that Aaron and I were on different paths right now, that we both needed space to grow and heal. The moment I said goodbye, I felt a mix of sadness and relief. The sadness was deep, because I had loved deeply. But the relief came from knowing I was choosing myself for the first time in a long time. Remember the day I told Aaron. We met in a quiet cafe away from the noise of the world. My voice was steady, but my heart was heavy. I think it is time for us to take a break, I said gently. I need time to heal, and maybe you do too. He looked surprised but did not argue. There was a silence between us, full of things, unsaid. That goodbye was not dramatic or angry. It was quiet, respectful, and honest. It was a farewell filled with hope, for healing, for growth, and maybe one day for a new beginning. After that day, I spent more time alone, reflecting on what I wanted from life. I explored new hobbies, reconnected with old friends, and took better care of myself. I learned that saying goodbye is not about losing. It is about making space for new things to enter your life. I said goodbye to old pain and old patterns. I said goodbye to the idea that my worth depended on others. Most importantly, I said goodbye to fear. The fear of being alone, the fear of change, and the fear of the unknown. Saying goodbye was an act of courage. It was saying to myself, I am enough. I deserve peace and happiness. And in that moment, I began to feel free. Free to love myself, free to dream new dreams, and free to live my life fully. Saying goodbye was not the end. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where I was the author of my own story. After saying goodbye, I found myself alone more than before. At first, the silence was loud. The house felt emptier. The routines I once shared with Aaron were now mine alone to follow. Some days, the quiet was comforting. Other days, it was a reminder of everything that had changed. Being alone was a new experience for me. I had spent so many years focused on family, on supporting Aaron, managing the home, and keeping things running smoothly. Now, without his presence, I was forced to face myself in a different way. At first, I felt lost. Who was I without him? What was my place in the world now? These questions weighed heavily on my mind. I missed the connection we once had, even if it was imperfect. But slowly, being alone began to teach me something important. It taught me to listen to my own thoughts and feelings without distraction. I began to understand parts of myself I had ignored for a long time. I spent time in quiet reflection. Some mornings I would sit by the window with a cup of tea, watching the sunlight move across the room. I noticed the small things I had overlooked before. The sound of birds outside, the gentle breeze through the curtains, the warmth of the sun on my skin. These simple moments helped me find peace. I learned that being alone did not mean being lonely. It meant having space to breathe, to heal, and to grow. I started to reconnect with old hobbies I had set aside. I took up painting again, something I loved in my younger years, but had forgotten. The colors and brush strokes became a way to express my emotions without words. Painting helped me see beauty in the present moment. It reminded me that life could be full of color, even after pain. I also began to take better care of myself physically. I went for daily walks in the park, enjoying the fresh air and gentle exercise. Moving my body helped release tension I did not realize I was holding. In these moments alone, I found strength. I realized that I was capable of standing on my own 2 feet. I could face the future with courage, even if it was uncertain. Sometimes, I still felt the sting of loneliness. There were evenings when I missed having someone to talk to share a laugh with, or to simply sit quietly beside. Those feelings were natural and part of the healing process. I reminded myself that it was okay to feel sad sometimes. Healing is not a straight path. It has ups and downs. I found comfort in small rituals, lighting a candle in the evening, reading a favorite book, or listening to soft music. These simple acts became a way to nurture my soul. Being alone also gave me time to think about my dreams and goals, things I had put aside for too long. I began to imagine what I wanted for myself, not just for my family. I realized that this time alone was a gift, even if it did not always feel that way. It was a chance to rediscover who I was beneath the roles I had played for so many years. I started to write again, filling pages with my thoughts, memories, and hopes. Writing became a friend, helping me make sense of my feelings. With every word, I felt lighter. I was no longer running from pain. I was facing it with honesty and grace. Being alone taught me patience with myself and with the process of healing. It also taught me hope that one day the pain would soften and joy would return. Most of all, being alone helped me find peace within myself. I was learning to enjoy my own company, to be kind to myself, to trust that I was enough. This quiet time was not empty. It was full of possibility. I was not just surviving. I was beginning to live again. I knew that the journey ahead would still have challenges, but I felt ready to face them with an open heart. I was alone now, yes, but I was not lost. I was finding my way, one small step at a time, and that was enough. The days passed, and I began to notice something important. I was not the same person I had been before. The pain and the time spent alone had changed me. I was growing in ways I had never expected. Though the change was slow, it was real. I used to think strength meant holding everything inside, never showing weakness. I believed I had to be perfect for my family, always ready to help, always strong. But now I understood that real strength was different. It was about being honest with myself. It was about feeling my emotions fully, even the hard ones, and still moving forward. Sometimes, I caught myself smiling for no reason. Small moments of joy came quietly. A flower blooming in the garden, a bird's song in the morning, a kind word from a stranger. These little things reminded me that life still held beauty. My heart was healing, but it was also opening in new ways. I found that I could feel deeply, hope, sadness, love, and courage all at once. I realized I was becoming more aware of my own needs and feelings. I was learning to listen to myself, not just others. I noticed how I stood a little straighter, how my voice sounded firmer when I spoke. The confidence I had lost was slowly returning, but this time, it was not about proving anything to anyone. It was about knowing my own worth. My relationships began to change as well. I was more patient with others, more understanding, but I was also clearer about my boundaries. I stopped saying yes when I really wanted to say no. I learned that it was okay to put myself first sometimes. This change was not easy. Old habits were hard to break. Sometimes I slipped back into doubt or sadness. But each time, I reminded myself that growth is a process. It is not perfect or fast. It is gentle and steady. I looked back at the woman I used to be and felt both sadness and pride. Sadness for the pain she had endured. Pride for the courage she had shown by continuing to hope. I was becoming a new version of myself, stronger, wiser, more compassionate. I was learning to accept all parts of me, even the imperfect ones. I also discovered a new sense of freedom. I no longer felt tied to the expectations of others. I was free to choose what made me happy. I was free to create my own path. This freedom came with responsibility. I knew I had to care for myself in ways I had not before. To be gentle with my heart and mind. To keep growing even when it was hard. One evening I sat quietly and thought about my journey. I realized I had come so far. The woman who once felt invisible was now visible, to herself first, and then to the world. I was not the same. I was better. This change gave me hope for the future. I believed that I could face whatever came next with courage and grace. I also felt a deep gratitude for the lessons I had learned and for the strength I had found inside. I knew that life would still have challenges, but I was ready. Ready to live fully, with an open heart and clear mind. Ready to love and be loved on my own terms. I was not the same woman who had begun this journey. I was more, and that was a gift I would cherish forever. There was a moment, quiet and unexpected, when a small light appeared in my life. It was not a grand event or a dramatic change. It was something gentle and simple, yet it gave me hope I had not felt in a long time. For many months, I had been living in a kind of shadow. The pain of the past, the loneliness, and the uncertainty about the future made everything seem heavy. Each day felt like a challenge just to get through. But one afternoon, something shifted. I was walking through the park, the cool breeze brushing against my face. The trees were tall and steady, their leaves whispering softly above me. I stopped by a bench and sat down to rest. As I sat there, a young woman approached with a small child. The child's eyes were bright, full of wonder. The woman smiled warmly and nodded at me. I returned the smile, feeling a strange warmth inside. The child began to play nearby, chasing butterflies and laughing with pure joy. Watching the child, I felt a gentle stirring in my heart, a reminder of innocence, of life's simple pleasures. In that moment, the small light inside me grew a little brighter. I realized that hope could come quietly, without noise or fanfare. It could be found in everyday moments, in the kindness of strangers, in the beauty of nature. This small light was a sign that I was healing, that I was moving forward. I thought about the journey I had been on, the sadness and pain I had carried, the goodbyes I had said, the strength I had found in being alone. All of it had brought me here, to this peaceful moment. The small light was a promise that the future held good things, even if I could not see them clearly yet. I began to look for more of these small lights in my daily life. I noticed the way the sun shone through the kitchen window in the morning, the sound of birds singing outside my window, the gentle comfort of a warm cup of tea in my hands. These small moments became anchors, steadying me when I felt overwhelmed. I also started to reach out to others again. I called an old friend I had not spoken to in years. We talked for hours, sharing memories and laughter. The connection reminded me that I was not alone in the world. Slowly, I allowed myself to hope again, Not in a big, overwhelming way, but in small steps. Hope that I could find happiness. Hope that I could rebuild my life on my own terms. The small light inside me grew stronger each day. It helped me see that I had value, that my story was not over. Even in the darkest times, a small light can guide you. It does not have to be bright or loud. It only needs to be enough to show the way. I carried that light with me, like a gentle flame. It warmed my heart and gave me courage. I knew that the road ahead would still have challenges. But with this small light, I felt ready to face them. I was no longer afraid of the unknown. I trusted that the light would lead me through. And so I walked forward, slowly, carefully, but with hope. A hope that was quiet, but strong. A hope that came from deep inside me, a small light that was just the beginning. The decision to begin again was not sudden. It came slowly, like the first light of dawn breaking through a long night. After months of silence, reflection, and healing, I finally felt ready to step forward and create a new chapter in my life. Remember the morning I woke up and realized that I could not stay stuck in the past any longer. The pain was still there, but it no longer controlled me. I could feel a quiet strength inside, something I had not noticed before. I decided to take small steps. I did not try to change everything at once. Instead, I focused on simple actions. That brought me peace and joy. First, I created a morning routine that was just for me. I would wake up early, before the sun rose, and spend a few minutes in quiet meditation. Sitting still, breathing deeply, I learned to listen to my own heart. This new practice helped me find calm before the day began. It was a gift I gave myself each morning, a moment to remember who I was beneath the worries and pain. Next, I began to care for my body in ways I had forgotten. I started walking every day, feeling the earth beneath my feet and the fresh air filling my lungs. Movement became a source of healing. It reminded me that I was alive and capable. I also paid more attention to what I ate. I chose foods that nourished me, foods that gave me energy. I did not count calories or follow strict rules. Instead, I listened to my body's needs and treated it with kindness. As I cared for my body, I noticed my mind becoming clearer. The fog of sadness began to lift. I could think more clearly about my future and my dreams. I began to write again, filling notebooks with my thoughts, hopes, and plans. Writing helped me organize my feelings and gave me a sense of control. I did not share these writings with anyone at first. They were private, a place where I could be honest and free. Slowly, I began to imagine what I wanted my life to look like. I thought about hobbies I wanted to explore, places I wanted to visit, and new skills I wanted to learn. I made a list, not as a to-do, but as a map of possibilities. Each item was a small promise to myself to live fully and with intention. One of the most important changes was learning to say no. For so long, I had said yes to everyone else, even when it drained me. Now, I understood that saying no was a way to protect my energy and honor my needs. This was difficult at times. Old habits. Heart. But every time I set a boundary, I felt stronger and more respected, both by myself and others. I also reached out to friends more often. I joined a small book club and started attending community events. These connections brought light and laughter back into my days. I was beginning again, but not as a broken woman trying to fix herself. I was beginning as a whole person, wiser and more aware. Each day was a gift. I learned to appreciate the little things. A kind word, a warm breeze, the taste of my morning coffee. I understood that life was not about avoiding pain. It was about learning how to live fully, even with pain. Some days were harder than others. Sometimes the past would visit like an unwelcome shadow, but now I knew I could face those moments with courage. I reminded myself that healing was not a straight line. It was a journey with many turns, and with each step, I was becoming more myself. I was beginning again, stronger, calmer, and full of hope. This was my new start, my chance to create a life that felt true to me, a life where I could be proud of the woman I had become. I was ready. After months of silence, he suddenly appeared again in my life. I did not expect it. I had thought that the chapter between us was closed, that the door had been firmly shut. But one day I received a message. It was from him. At first, I did not know how to feel. A mix of emotions rushed through me. Surprise, confusion, anger, and even a little hope. I had spent so long healing, building myself up again, and now here he was, reaching out. The message was simple and careful. He said he wanted to talk, to explain, to make things right. He said he missed me and regretted what had happened. I stared at the screen for a long time, unsure what to do. Part of me wanted to believe him. Part of me wanted to protect myself from more pain. I thought about the past, the hurt, the betrayal, the long nights of tears. I remembered how I had felt invisible and unimportant, how his words had cut deep, making me question my own worth. Yet, here he was, trying to come back. I realized that this moment was a test, not of him, but of me. Would I fall back into old patterns? Would I forgive too quickly? Or would I stand, firm in the new person I had become? I took a deep breath and decided to meet him, not because I was sure of anything, but because I wanted to hear his side. I wanted to see if there was any truth in his words. When we met, I noticed the changes in him. He looked older, more tired. There was a softness in his eyes I had not seen before. He seemed different, but I was cautious. He apologized for the pain he had caused. He admitted his mistakes and said he had been wrong to doubt me. He said he wanted to rebuild our relationship if I was willing. As he spoke, I felt a mixture of emotions. I wanted to believe in second chances, but I also remembered the strength I had found in being alone. I told him that I was not the same woman he had known before. I explained how I had grown and changed, how I had learned to value myself and set boundaries. He listened carefully, and I saw a flicker of respect in his eyes, but I also made it clear that forgiveness would take time. Trust was not something to give lightly. It was earned, step by step. I did not promise anything. I did not say yes or no. I wanted to protect my heart. After our meeting, I spent many days thinking. I weighed the risks and the possibilities. I asked myself if I was ready to open the door again. I knew that going back would not be easy. It would mean facing the past and risking new hurt. But I also knew that closing the door forever might mean missing out on healing and connection. In the end, I chose to listen to my own feelings. I chose to move slowly, with caution and care. I told him that I needed time and space, that I was willing to talk, but only if we took things one step at a time. He agreed, and we parted with a promise to be honest and patient. This experience showed me how much I had changed. I was no longer desperate for approval or afraid of being alone. I was stronger and wiser. I realized that when someone tries to come back, it is not just about their intentions. It is about how you feel and what you need. I was learning to trust myself again, to protect my heart, to choose my own happiness. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I was ready to face it, with courage, with hope, and with the strength of the woman I had become. When he tried to come back into my life, I realized something very important. I was not the same woman he had once known. I was different now. Not just because of time passing, but because I had grown, changed, and learned so much about myself. Before, I might have welcomed him with open arms without thinking twice. I would have been eager to fix what was broken, to make things feel like they once were. But now, I understood that healing takes time. It takes patience and respect. I felt stronger in a way that was quiet, but powerful. I had faced pain and betrayal, and I had survived. I had learned to listen to my own voice, to trust my feelings, and to protect my heart. This new strength gave me clarity. When he came back, I could see not only his intentions, but also the risks involved. I was careful not to let old patterns repeat themselves. I remembered the many nights I had spent crying alone, wondering if I was enough. I remembered the moments when I doubted myself, when I felt invisible and unheard. But those feelings were not who I was anymore. I had learned to value myself, to say no when something did not feel right, to put my well-being first. Meeting him again was a test of this new self-awareness. We talked more than once. Sometimes the conversations were difficult. We spoke about the past, about the mistakes and misunderstandings. We talked about hopes and fears. I listened to him carefully, but I also spoke honestly. I told him how his words and actions had hurt me deeply. I explained that forgiveness was not simple or quick. At times I felt a flicker of old feelings, hope, longing, even love. But I kept those feelings balanced with wisdom. I reminded myself to stay grounded. He tried to explain why things had happened the way they did. He admitted his faults and asked for a second chance. But I knew that second chances come with conditions. They require effort and change from both people. I realized that I was no longer willing to accept excuses. I wanted actions, not just words. This was a new me, a woman who had grown through struggle and pain, a woman who had rebuilt her life on her own terms. I took my time to decide what I wanted. I did not rush. I thought about my needs, my dreams, and my peace of mind. I understood that I could choose to welcome him back, but only if it was healthy for me, if it respected the boundaries I had set. I also understood that I could say no and continue living fully without regret. This realization was freeing. It gave me control over my life and emotions. I no longer feared being alone. I knew that solitude could be a gift, a time to heal and grow. I also knew that relationships must be built on respect, trust, and honesty. I was proud of the woman I had become. She was not perfect, but she was real and strong. I had learned to love myself again, and that was the greatest gift. So, when he came back, I did not react with desperation or fear. I responded with calm and confidence. I set clear boundaries and communicated my feelings honestly. I took each day as it came, not rushing into anything. This new approach gave me peace. It also showed him that I was serious about my worth. If he wanted to be part of my life, he had to meet me where I was now, not where I had been. This was not about punishment or revenge. It was about self-respect and growth. I was no longer the woman who needed his approval or validation. I was whole on my own. Being different now meant I could face the future without fear. It meant I could love without losing myself. And it meant I could walk away if needed, knowing that I was enough. The past had shaped me, but it did not define me. I was free to choose my own path, and I chose to honor the woman I had become. There came a moment when I knew I had to make a choice. It was not easy, but it was necessary. I had spent so much time trying to fix what was broken between us, hoping that things would change, that he would be different. But deep inside, I realized that no matter what happened, I needed to choose myself. Choosing myself meant putting my needs first. It meant valuing my feelings and my peace over fear or guilt. It meant understanding that my happiness was my responsibility, not his. For many years, I had allowed myself to be defined by the opinions and actions of others. I had lived trying to please everyone, my family, my friends, even strangers. But now, I saw that this was not healthy or fair to me. I was tired of feeling invisible, unheard, and unimportant. I wanted to be seen and respected for who I truly was. So, I made a decision. I chose to be kind to myself, to listen to my heart and honor my boundaries. It was not about being selfish. It was about self-care. It was about survival. I realized that if I did not choose myself, no one else would. Choosing myself meant saying no to toxic patterns and old wounds that no longer served me. It meant walking away from relationships that drained my energy and happiness. It meant believing in my worth and refusing to settle for less. I still cared deeply for the people in my life, but I understood that caring did not mean sacrificing my well-being. I took time to reflect on what I truly wanted from life. I asked myself important questions. What makes me happy? What gives me peace? Who brings out the best in me? I found that the answers were simple but powerful. Happiness came from small moments of joy, walking in nature, reading a good book, sharing a laugh with a friend. Peace came from silence, from knowing that I was enough just as I was. The people who brought out the best in me were those who respected my feelings, supported my dreams, and accepted me fully. Choosing myself also meant forgiving, not just others, but myself. I forgave myself for past mistakes, for times I had allowed others to hurt me, for moments I doubted my own worth. Forgiveness was a gift I gave to my soul. It freed me from the chains of regret and guilt. As I chose myself, I noticed a change in the way I moved through the world. I stood taller, spoke clearer, and smiled more often. I found joy in simple things and strength in quiet moments. I began to trust my intuition again. I listened to my inner voice, even when it was hard. This new confidence made me feel alive. I was no longer afraid of being alone. In fact, I cherished my own company. I learned that being alone was not lonely. It was a chance to connect deeply with myself. Choosing myself also meant opening my heart to new possibilities. I was ready to build a life that reflected my true self. I explored new hobbies, reconnected with old passions, and made plans for the future. I was creating a path that was mine alone, filled with hope and purpose. Sometimes people did not understand my decision. They asked why I was so firm, why I seemed distant. I explained gently that choosing myself was about survival and growth. I told them that it was a journey of learning to love and respect myself first. And slowly, they began to see the change in me. They saw my strength and peace. Choosing myself was not the end of my story. It was the beginning of a beautiful new chapter. A chapter where I was the author of my own happiness. Where I was the hero of my own life. I knew that challenges would still come. Life is never perfect. But now, I had the tools and the courage to face them. I was no longer defined by my past or by others' opinions. I was defined by my choices. And my most important choice was to choose myself. With that choice, I found freedom. Found peace, I found hope, and I found love, starting with the love I gave to myself. I woke up one morning feeling something I had not felt in a long time. Calm. Not the restless, anxious calm that comes before a storm, but a peaceful, gentle calm that settled in my heart like a soft morning breeze. The sun was shining through. The window and the world outside seemed fresh and new. It was as if life itself had pressed a reset button, giving me a chance to begin again. I smiled. Not because I had forgotten the pain or the struggles, but because I had survived them. I had carried myself through the darkest nights, and now stood on the other side, stronger and wiser. That morning, I decided to embrace this new day fully, to live in the present without being weighed down by the past, to move forward with hope instead of fear. I made myself a cup of tea and sat quietly by the window. The birds were singing softly, and the world seemed to breathe with me. I thought about how far I had come, how much I had grown. The hurt was still there, like a scar beneath the skin, but it no longer controlled me. I had learned to live with it, to let it be part of my story without letting it define me. I thought about the people who had hurt me, who had doubted me, who had made me feel less than I was. I realized that holding on to anger and bitterness only kept me trapped. So, I chose to let go. Not because I forgot or excused what happened, but because I wanted to free myself. I wanted to walk forward with lightness in my step and peace in my soul. That day, I stepped outside and felt the sun warm my face. I breathed deeply and felt alive. It was a new day in every sense. I took a walk in the park nearby, noticing the simple beauty around me. The green leaves on the trees, the soft sound of children playing, the gentle rustling of the wind. I felt connected to the world in a way I had not for a long time. It was as if I had been asleep, and now I was waking up. As I walked, I smiled at strangers and greeted old friends. The world seemed friendlier, and I felt ready to face whatever came. Next, I thought about my family and the challenges we had faced. I did not know what the future held for us, but I knew that I could face it with courage. I also thought about myself, about the woman I had become. She was someone who had faced pain, but chose hope. Someone who had been broken, but was healing. She was someone who smiled, not because she forgot, but because she survived. That thought brought tears to my eyes. Tears of relief and gratitude. Tears of acceptance and love. I knew that life was not perfect. There would be more challenges and hard days. But I also knew that I was ready to live fully, to love openly, and to be true to myself. That new day was a gift, a fresh start, and I intended to make the most of it. I promised myself to be gentle and kind, to celebrate small victories and learn from setbacks. I would not rush or force things. I would take life one moment at a time with patience and grace. I knew that this new day was not just about me. It was about the future I wanted to build. A future filled with peace, joy, and love. A future where I could be proud of who I was and who I was becoming. That morning, I felt hope like a small flame burning inside me. It was fragile, but strong. It was enough. I walked home feeling lighter, knowing that each new day brought the chance to grow and heal, and I was ready because she smiled. Not because she forgot, but because she survived. There is a quiet power in gratitude. I have learned this over the months since everything changed. Today, I want to say thank you, not just to the people who helped me, but to life itself for teaching me valuable lessons, even when they were painful. At first, it was difficult to find reasons to be thankful. When you feel hurt, betrayed, or lost, it is easy to focus only on the pain. But slowly, I began to see the gifts hidden inside my struggles. Thank you to my younger self, who never gave up, even when things seemed impossible. Thank you for your courage, even when you felt scared. I know you did your best. Thank you to my family, even for the times they misunderstood me. Their actions made me stronger, made me realize my worth. Sometimes, the hardest lessons come from the people we love. Thank you to my friends who stood by me quietly, those who listened without judgment, who offered support without asking for anything in return. Their kindness was a light in the darkness. Thank you to the moments of silence and solitude. They gave me space to think and heal. Sometimes, being alone is the best way to find yourself. Thank you to the tears I cried. Each one was a step toward healing. Letting myself feel sadness made me human and opened my heart to hope again. Thank you to the pain that taught me boundaries. It showed me where to stand and what I would no longer accept. Pain became a teacher, not a prison. Thank you to the new friends I made along the way. People who saw me for who I am and celebrated my journey. Their presence was a reminder that connection can heal. Thank you to the everyday moments. The warm sun on my face. The smell of fresh coffee in the morning. The sound of birds singing outside my window. These small things became my anchors to joy. Thank you to myself for learning to choose self-love. For believing that I am worthy of respect and happiness. This was the hardest thank you of all, but also the most important. I realized that gratitude is not about ignoring problems or pretending everything is perfect. It is about recognizing the strength and growth that come from facing challenges. Saying thank you helped me shift my perspective. It gave me hope when I thought I had none. It helped me find beauty in unexpected places. Sometimes I write down what I am grateful for. It is a simple practice, but powerful. It reminds me that life is full of both struggles and blessings. I also learned to say thank you to others more often, to express appreciation for small kindnesses and honest moments. Gratitude opened doors to deeper relationships. When I look back on my journey, I see how far I have come, from confusion and pain to strength and peace. It was not easy, but it was worth it. I have learned to thank the past for shaping me, to thank the present for giving me new chances, and to thank the future for its possibilities. Thank you, life, for this beautiful mess, for the lessons, the love, and the hope. I hope that by sharing my story, I can inspire others to find gratitude in their own struggles, to see the light even in dark times. If you are listening to this, I want to say thank you to you too. Thank you for opening your heart to my words. Thank you for being brave enough to listen and to feel. Remember, gratitude is a journey, not a destination. It takes practice and patience, but it can change the way you see the world. So today, I say thank you. With a full heart and open arms. Thank you for the pain that made me grow. Thank you for the love that never left me. Thank you for the chance to choose myself and find peace. And most of all, thank you for the new day, full of hope and promise. Forgiveness is not always easy. Sometimes the hardest person to forgive is yourself. For many years, I carried guilt and blame deep inside my heart. I thought that if I could just be better or do more, then things would be different. But now, I understand that forgiving myself is a vital step toward true healing. I remember the nights when I lay awake, replaying moments in my mind, wishing I had acted differently. I blamed myself for the mistakes I thought I made. I felt as if I had failed not only myself, but also those I loved. It was a heavy burden to carry. I did not realize how much weight I was placing on my own shoulders. It slowed me down, made me doubt my worth, and kept me from moving forward. But forgiveness is not about forgetting or excusing the past. It is about accepting that we are human, and humans make mistakes. It is about learning to be kind to yourself, even when things do not go perfectly. One day, I sat quietly and looked at myself in the mirror. I saw a woman who had been through so much. She had been hurt, betrayed, and confused. But she was still here, still standing. I told myself softly, "I forgive you." At first, the words felt strange and uncomfortable. It was as if I was saying something I did not truly believe, but I kept saying it. I repeated it like a gentle prayer. Slowly, those words began to soften the hard edges of my guilt. I thought about all the things I blamed myself for. The times I thought I should have spoken up, the moments I felt I was not enough, the choices I thought were wrong. I realized that I had done the best I could with what I knew at the time. I had been learning, growing, and trying to protect myself and my family. Forgiving myself also meant letting go of regret. Regret is a heavy chain that ties us to the past. When I forgave myself, I started to break free from those chains. I understood that forgiveness is a process, not a one-time event. Some days the guilt would still creep back in. But now, I knew how to face it with compassion. I began to treat myself as I would treat a dear friend, with patience, kindness, and understanding. I gave myself permission to be imperfect and to keep learning. This change was not easy. It took time and courage. But every small step forward felt like a victory. I also found strength in sharing my feelings with trusted friends. Talking about my struggles helped me see that I was not alone. Many people carry the same burdens of guilt and self-blame. Hearing their stories made me feel connected and understood. It reminded me that forgiveness is a common journey we all take. As I forgave myself, I noticed other parts of my life starting to heal. My relationships became more honest and open. I stopped hiding behind fear and doubt. I began to believe that I deserved happiness and peace, that I was worthy of love, not because I was perfect, but because I was real. Forgiving myself also helped me forgive others more easily. When I stopped judging myself so harshly, I found it easier to see the humanity in others. This was a powerful realization. Forgiveness was not just a gift I gave myself, but a way to bring more peace into my whole world. I want to tell you that if you carry guilt or regret, you are not alone. Forgiving yourself is hard, but it is possible, and it is worth it. You do not have to carry the weight of your past mistakes forever. You can choose to let go and move forward with compassion. Start small. Be gentle with yourself. Remember that you are human and allowed to make mistakes. Say the words out loud if you can. I forgive myself. Even if it feels strange or difficult, keep trying. Over time, those words will become real in your heart. I promise that forgiveness will bring you peace. It will open the door to healing and freedom. And when you forgive yourself, you will find a new kind of strength, a strength that comes from love and acceptance. Today, I am grateful that I took this step. Forgiving myself has changed my life in ways I never imagined. It has given me hope, light, and the courage to keep going. If you are listening to this, I want you to know that you deserve that too. You deserve forgiveness. You deserve peace. And you deserve to love yourself fully, just as you are. Freedom is a feeling I had forgotten. For a long time, I believed freedom was something distant, almost impossible to reach. It was a dream that seemed just out of grasp. But now, I understand that freedom is not about where you are or what you have. It is about how you feel inside. That morning, I decided to celebrate my freedom in a simple, yet meaningful way. I walked barefoot on the soft grass outside my home. The cool earth touched my skin, and I felt connected to the world around me. Walking without shoes was more than just a physical act. It was a symbol, a way to remind myself that I was grounded, real, and alive. I felt the earth beneath my feet, solid and steady, just like the new strength growing inside me. I took a deep breath and let the fresh air fill my lungs. For the first time in a long while, I felt truly alive. Freedom also meant dancing. Slowly, gently, as if no one was watching. I moved my body with ease and joy. Each step, each movement was a celebration of life and a release from the past. Dancing was a way to express emotions I could not always put into words. It was healing. It was joyful. It was freeing. I closed my eyes and let the music in my heart guide me. I remembered the times I felt trapped by fear, by pain, by other people's expectations. Now those chains felt broken. I was no longer a prisoner of my past or my doubts. I was free to be myself, fully and openly. Freedom also meant accepting myself completely, the good and the bad, the strong and the weak. I no longer needed to hide behind masks or pretend to be someone I was not. I embraced my flaws and imperfections. They were part of my story, part of what made me unique. I felt a deep sense of peace in this acceptance. It was as if a heavy weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Freedom gave me courage to speak my truth, even when it was difficult. It allowed me to set boundaries and say no without guilt. I learned that true freedom is not about doing whatever you want all the time. It is about choosing what is best for you and living with integrity. It is about being honest with yourself and others, about living authentically. That day, I also felt free from the need for approval. I realized that I do not need others to validate my worth or my choices. I am enough just as I am. This simple truth brought tears to my eyes. Freedom is a gift I give myself every day. It is a choice I make to live fully, to love deeply, and to grow continuously. I want to encourage anyone listening to find their own freedom. It may look different for each person, but it always starts inside. It begins with self-love and acceptance, with letting go of fear and shame, with trusting that you are worthy of happiness. Freedom means releasing the past and stepping into your power. It means being brave enough to live your truth. I know that freedom is not always easy. Sometimes it takes time, patience, and hard work. But every small step toward freedom is a victory. Every moment you choose yourself is a step closer to a life that feels real and true. I invite you to imagine what freedom looks like for you. What does it feel like? How does it change your life? Maybe it is walking barefoot in the grass, like me. Maybe it is dancing alone in your room, or speaking up for yourself in a difficult situation. Whatever it is, know that freedom is possible. It is waiting for you to claim it. You deserve to be free. Free from fear. Free from doubt. Free from anything that holds you back. You deserve to live a life that brings you joy and peace. And I am here to remind you that you are not alone. We are all on this journey together, learning and growing. So, take a deep breath. Feel the earth beneath your feet. Dance to the rhythm of your heart. Say to yourself, I am free, because you are, more than you know. Knowing who I am today feels like a quiet victory. It is not a loud announcement or a sudden realization, but rather a deep, steady understanding that has grown over time. I am no longer searching for approval or trying to fit into someone else's expectations. I have found my own identity, and it feels powerful. For many years, I defined myself through others. I was a mother, a wife, a helper, a supporter. These roles were important, but I sometimes forgot to ask, who am I beyond these roles? It was as if I lost sight of the woman underneath all the responsibilities. Now, I see myself clearly. I am a woman who has faced pain and betrayal. I am someone who has made mistakes and learned from them. I am strong, even when I feel weak. I am kind, even when I feel angry. I am whole. This journey of self-discovery was not easy. It took patience and courage to look inside and face the parts of me that were hidden or broken. There were moments of doubt and fear. I worried that I might not like what I found, but I did. I found a soul that is resilient and hopeful, a heart that still wants to love and be loved, a mind that is curious and open to new possibilities. I learned that knowing who I am means accepting all parts of myself, the good and the bad. It means loving my strengths and forgiving my weaknesses. It means being honest about my needs and feelings. I remember a time when I felt lost and invisible. My son told me I was not relevant anymore. Those words hurt deeply. For a moment, I believed them. I thought my value was tied only to what others said or thought. But now, I know that my worth does not depend on anyone else's opinion. I am valuable simply because I exist, because I have lived, felt, and grown. Knowing who I am also means embracing my story. Every chapter, even the painful ones, have shaped me. They have taught me lessons I would not have learned otherwise. I do not try to erase the past. Instead, I carry it with me as a part of my identity. It reminds me of my strength and how far I have come. This self-awareness has changed the way I live each day. I make choices that align with my true self. I no longer say yes just to please others. I listen to my heart and trust my instincts. I have learned to set boundaries that protect my peace. I choose relationships that nurture and respect me. I let go of people and situations that drain my energy. Knowing who I am also means dreaming again. I allow myself to hope for new joys and possibilities. I am not limited by age or past mistakes. Every day is a chance to create something new. I find joy in simple things: a morning cup of tea, a walk in nature, a good book. These moments connect me to myself and remind me of the beauty in life. I want to share with you the importance of knowing yourself. It is the foundation of happiness and peace. When you know who you are, you can live authentically and fully. This journey may feel long or difficult at times. You may face challenges that test your courage, but keep going. Every step forward brings you closer to the truth of who you are. Try to spend quiet moments with yourself. Reflect on your feelings and dreams. Write down your thoughts or talk to someone you trust. Ask yourself gentle questions like, what makes me happy? Or, what do I need to feel safe? Listen carefully to the answers. Remember, you are more than your past, your mistakes, or what others say. You are a unique person with your own gifts and story. It is okay to be different. It is okay to change and grow. You do not have to have all the answers right now. Be patient with yourself. Self-discovery is a journey, not a destination. I am grateful for this understanding. It has given me freedom and peace. It has helped me love myself in a way I never thought possible. If you are listening now, I hope you find this gift too. Know that you are enough. Know that you matter. You have a light inside you waiting to shine. Do not be afraid to let it glow. Take your time. Be kind to yourself. Keep exploring the beautiful person you are. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing is that you know who you are, and that knowledge is the greatest strength you will ever have. As I reach the end of my story, I want to speak directly to you, the person listening right now. This story is not just mine. It is a story about all of us, about the struggles and victories we share as human beings. I want to leave you with a message from my heart, a message of hope, courage, and love. Life is never simple. We face challenges that test us in ways we never expect. Sometimes those closest to us cause the deepest pain. I know this feeling too well. When my son told me I was no longer relevant, it shattered my world. It made me question my worth and my place in his life. But I learned something important through that pain. You are always relevant. Your value is not measured by others, opinions, or by your achievements. You are valuable simply because you exist. You matter because you have a story, a heart, and a soul that no one else can replace. If you are feeling invisible or forgotten, please remember this. You are seen. You are heard. Even if it feels like no one notices, I see you now, and I honor your journey. It is okay to feel hurt. It is okay to cry and to feel lost. Emotions are part of being human. They remind us that we are alive, that we care deeply. Do not be afraid of your feelings. Welcome them, and let them guide you toward healing. At the same time, do not let pain keep you stuck. It is hard to move forward, I understand. But every small step you take toward healing is a victory. Even when progress feels slow, it is still progress. Trust yourself. Listen to your inner voice. You have wisdom inside you that can guide you through difficult times. You have strength you might not even realize yet. Sometimes, the people we love may not understand us. They may not appreciate all that we give. This can hurt deeply, but it does not define your worth. You deserve love, respect, and kindness. If someone does not see your value, it says more about their limitations than about you. You cannot control how others feel or act, but you can control how you treat yourself. Choose to be gentle with yourself. Speak kindly to your inner voice. Celebrate your small victories. Take care of your body, your mind, and your heart. Remember, growth takes time. Healing takes patience. And forgiveness, whether for yourself or others, is a gift that frees your soul. In my story, I found freedom not by changing others, but by changing how I see myself. I learned to let go of expectations that weighed me down. I found peace in accepting who I am, flaws and all. I want you to know that it is possible for you too. You can find light even in dark times. You can discover a strength you did not know you had. Do not be afraid to start again. Every day is a new chance to choose joy, hope, and love. It does not matter how many times you fall. What matters is that you keep getting up. Surround yourself with people who lift you up and support your journey. Seek friends who listen without judgment. Find comfort in simple moments. A walk in nature, a warm cup of tea, a favorite song, and never stop dreaming. Your dreams are important. They give you direction and purpose. No matter your age or your past, you deserve to pursue what makes your heart sing. I am proud of you for listening, for being open to this story, and for being brave enough to face your own life with honesty. You are not alone. We all carry stories of pain and triumph. Together we can heal and grow stronger. So, as we close this chapter, I want to thank you. Thank you for giving me your time and your heart. It means more than words can say. If this story touched you, please remember to take care of yourself. Be patient, be kind, and be courageous. Your story matters. Your voice matters. Your life matters. I hope my journey inspires you to find your own strength and freedom. To know that no matter what happens, you are worthy of love and happiness. Keep moving forward. Keep believing in yourself. And above all, keep loving yourself. This is my message to you. From my heart to yours, thank you.